Hello and welcome everyone to NBA Moonlight, Season 1 of Moonlight, Season 2 of the League. I'm your Commissioner Hunch, and I'm going to be doing the Moonlight Power Rankings. Sorry that they're late. I have just not had a great week, and I haven't really had the time or motivation to get these done. But finally, I got a day where I'm just going to take to myself, and I figured I'd just bang these out. So before I get into anything, just know these are all just my opinions, and this is just for fun. So if you want to prove us wrong, prove us wrong. This is just for fun. Just a little way to see how somebody else thinks of your team. No harm, no foul. I like a lot of people. I like pretty much everyone in this league, so there's no real bias. Yeah, without further ado, I guess let's get into it. So number 12 has got to be my boy Ryan Time, coach of the Furo Force. So number 1 that's really glaring to me is there is a lot of doubling up on typings. You got 3 flyings, 3 grounds, 2 waters, 4 grounds actually. It's just a lot of the things on this team have common shared weaknesses and similar counters. Speed is also not terribly great. I mean, from Crobat to Dugtrio to I think it's Moltres. That's a pretty big jump from Dugtrio's, I believe, 120 to Moltres' I believe, base 90. You're missing a lot of stuff in that speed gap, which could be very problematic if you run into anything that can blow through this team, which is not very uncommon due to a lot of common typings. I will say that if you are going to pair triple flyings with anything, ground type is definitely the way to go with it, because they cover each other pretty well, with grass attacks being absorbed by Crobat, Moltres, Bronzong, and then the electric and rock attacks being absorbed by the ground types and Swampert, Nidoqueen, lesser extent, Dugtrio, and Trapinch. The team just doesn't have a whole lot of versatility in what it can do, and it's not gonna lie, it's kind of hard pressed against Steels with Levitate, or just Pokemon with Levitate in general. Doesn't really have a great way to deal with them. Crobat, you can run offensively. It's not the best, and if you're running it offensively, you're gonna either have to force Moltres or Furo to defog, because other than that, Hazard just staying on the field. You don't really have any Hazard setters. Well, Hazard removal, I'm sorry. You've got half of your team can set Stealth Rock with Swampert, Diancie, Bronzong, Dugtrio, and Nidoqueen. So I think it's fairly safe to say that rocks are going to be on the field at some point during the game. So that's good. No other hazards, really. Defog and removal, it's pretty limited. And if you're having Moltres do your defogging, I can't remember if it gets defog or not. But regardless, it's either Moltres, if it gets it, and Crobat, or just Crobat. And that could be very nasty, putting a lot of that pressure on Crobat. Offensively, the team is also very lacking, with Nidoqueen being the only Nidoqueen and Moltres that are primarily offensive. So it's a little bit awkward because they can both be run defensively very well. Something else that kind of irks me with this team is Swampert and Lantern. They basically do the same thing. They just pivot around and not a whole lot else. I mean, Swampert is pretty sturdy and is a good pick, but it works better if it's in conjunction with a good offensive partner, so you can bob and weave in and out. I just honestly, you're just last because the typings are just all too similar, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, if you're able to make it work, then by all means, good luck to you. Moving on to number 11, we got the Omarinator, OG coach from the Roost, shout out to you, my dude, of the Ontario Obstagoons. Biggest thing that this screams to me is just stall. It's just vomit, stall, disgusting grossness. Now, I had the unpleasant experience of facing this week 1, but I was able to beat it fairly easily because of one crucial thing this team is missing to be a good functioning stall team, and that's reliable removal. This team gets absolutely bowled over by toxic spikes and spikes in general, because Driftlim is the only removal that you have, which for a stall team is very, very not good. Especially, like, it just cuts into the regen core of Tangela and Slowking way too easily. Because every time they switch in, they're taking a lot less from regen, and it just does not feel too good. It really does not feel too good. The random Machoke is interesting. I'm not too sure why it's there. I mean, I guess low points value fighting type. Nice, cool, whatever. Ambipom is good, but doesn't do anything here. It's just weird, man. It's just weird. The team, it's very, very difficult to kill unless you can spam spikes and hazards and stuff. A few ways to improve the team. I personally would probably replace Hippowdon for a different ground and maybe swap it out with something more offensive. Then maybe swap out Mega Audino for a Defogger, or keep it as a Wish Passer, but with this team I don't really think that it needs a whole lot of Wish Passing, with Hippowdon, Arcanine, Slowbro, and Tangela all getting reliable recovery. So I don't think it's as important, because the only real beneficiary is going to be Registeel, which does appreciate it and does love it, but doesn't really do a whole lot outside of that. Maybe you want to replace Registeel with a different steel, or just something that can defog. You just need defog, dude. If you get defog, and maybe like one offensive heavy hitter to kind of clean up the scraps from the obnoxious stalling core that you have here, I think this team would do a lot better. Right, moving on to number 10 is a good buddy of mine, Sorrow, the Berlin Boltons. It kind of hurt me to put you down this low, but it just sucks because 4 Mons on your team are super reliant on Eviolite. Haunter a little bit less so, but between Carkol, Piloswine, and Gabite, they all really want their Eviolites. That's a bit of an L. Speed with this team is pretty good. You got Jolteon, Cinccino to, I believe, Haunter at 95. Cinccino, I believe, is 115. So it's not too bad a gap. And then I believe it goes to Moltres and then Rotom. And then I think Empoleon. The Firewater Grass core on this team is fucking ridiculous. 2 of them can pivot. All of them have defog, and you got Magic Bounce, so you've, like, hazards are a non-factor. Your setting hazards are pretty good with Carkol, Piloswine. Both pretty reliable about getting Stealth Rocks up, and Gabite. But again, it just kind of sucks because you're either going to be leading with them and almost certainly taking a knockoff, which none of your team really appreciates losing their item, whether it be Choice Band or Choice Scarf from Pangoro, lefties on your top 3, or a Scarf on Rotom or whatever. You don't really have any great knockoff absorbers to mitigate the 3 Mons that are pretty reliant on Eviolite. Outside of that, the team can be very nasty and difficult to switch into, and it gets Pangoro in very, very easily, because the pivoting on this team is really good, in my opinion. It's got Moltres, Rotom, Jolteon, Cinccino, all just free to spam Volt switching U-turn to get, you know, Pangoro in or Hatterene in to set up a Trick Room and sweep. It just sucks. The knockoff weakness is really big. You don't really have anything to switch in. The team is really good. There's also a big lack of a Steel type. No, Jesus, never mind. I'm kidding. Empoleon is right there. I am sorry. In terms of your, speaking of which, in terms of your typings, I think you have almost everything covered, except for Bug. Yeah, who gives a shit about Bug? Bug and Ice. Well, no, you got Ice. Jeez, I am so good. I am so smart this morning. Anyway, I'm sorry, man. The team is really good, though. I like it, but there's just some teams that I like much better. Good team, though. Sorry, I look forward to seeing how you do with this. Up next, we got DD Quiad of the Philadelphia Fampi. DD did phenomenally last season for NBA. I believe he was also in low tier. I believe he's going to be taking a page out of Humos' book from running the Uxie with Rain, with Kingdra and Mega Main abusing, which is very, very gross. Humos did a fantastic job last season with abusing that, so I'm really looking forward to see how that goes. Pivoting action on this team is very good, and is very easy to get things in that need to come in, like the Kingdra to just click Specs Draco, or Manectric to just click Thunderbolt. You got Incin, Decidueye, Cobalion, Uxie, and Manectric, all just spamming U-turn Volt Switch, which is very good. Keeps the team moving, keeps everything, you know, in check. Defensively, the team is fairly sound. You know, Weezing, Licky, Uxie, and Cobalion, to an extent, Incin. I feel like Incin on this team wants to be ran a little bit more offensively, because outside of the Rain with Mega Main and Kingdra, the offense is a little bit lacking outside of setup. Could be a little bit problematic, but I think with your team, it won't have too difficult a time pressuring your opponent into pins that they really don't want to be in for you to, in order to set up and sweep. So that's pretty good. I'm not too sure about the random Yanmega. I think Luminion gets Swift Swim, but I'm not sure how often that's ever going to come, if at all. But prove me wrong. I expect to see Luminion to be kill leaders. So if not, then you're just bad and terrible. So yeah, do that. Alright, next up on the chopping block, we got Qmos, speak of the devil, the Picton Piplups. I hate you, first and foremost. Give me my boy back. I want him back. He's mine. First thing that comes to mind, dear God, the offensive core of Zygarde and fucking Stack Attacka is terrifying. Because you either get Trick Room annihilated by Stacka, or you just get Banded Thousand Arrows by Zygarde, with Honchkrow either way, picking apart the pieces, whether it's in Trick Room or not. Whether it's either the Trick Room or Webs with the Smeargle. I like this team. It's fairly good, fairly offensive, fairly offense focused. The only thing I really don't like too much about this team is that the defensive pieces I feel like are a little bit too passive and don't have a way to get their offensive counterparts in. Between Stacka and Zygarde, both of them have very easy to exploit 4x weaknesses, and you don't really have a good way to pivot those guys in. In fact, there is very little pivoting at all on this team, being relegated to just Whimsicott and Meloetta. So it might be a little bit awkward getting Pokemon in. You might be forced to make uncomfortable decisions quite a bit. You know, between should I bring in Corsola and just let my opponent set up, or get free momentum, or should I just go balls to the walls and pray that Stack Attack can live a hit and set up Trick Room? It's a bit awkward, honestly. I feel like if you got a little bit more pivot in here, the team would be utterly disgusting. The team is pretty good as is. The Alamomola Fat Wishes are really good for Meloetta and Stacko if it's been taking resisted hits. Hotchkrow is just going to be... It pains me to say this, but it's going to suck because it's either going to have to run boots or it's going to have to be constantly being jabbed by Stealth Rocks. Because your only defog is Whimsicott and Smeargle, I guess. So it's going to be kind of awkward. It's either Hotchkrow's either not going to be doing enough damage or it's just going to be dying instantly. He's got a lot of good pieces, but just with a little bit of adjustments, this team could easily jump up a few places. Alright, next up we got Depressed Ari, my best friend, of a coach of the Ponyta Power. Team nasty. You got Espeon, Mega Houndoom, and Hariyama backed with Grimmsnarl screens. That's so obnoxious to deal with. Because they're frail. Well, Hariyama less so, but they just hit like a goddamn truck. Fire, Water, Grass Core, fairly good, fairly standard. Water and Grass being more defensive. And I guess one thing that confuses me: why do you have a Dreadnought? I don't really understand that much. I've never used it myself, so I look forward to seeing how you would use it. I just don't understand why it's there. Speed tiers are pretty good. I believe Houndoom and Espeon do share. No, Houndoom I think is 115. Maybe, probably. I know that Espeon and Megadoom are pretty close, and you don't really get any other speed outside of that, so it could be a little whack. Defensively, this team is pretty gross, because if you incorporate screens into this, Weezing, Sandaconda, Mantine, and Togedemaru, and I guess Eldegoss are going to be kind of difficult to break through for a few teams. It covers itself pretty well defensively. I don't really see any glaring weaknesses in terms of one or two types that just flat out run this team over. I quite like it, but I just don't think it does enough for it to be much higher. Its hazard game is a little weak with just Sandaconda and Weezing setting hazards. I don't believe Togedemaru gets spikes. No, Dreadnought also gets spikes. Or Stealth Rocks. Jeez. That's kind of it. I mean, you have great abusers of those hazards. Things that appreciate hazards being set up so that they can just run town in Houndoom, Hariyama, and Espeon. Team is going to be very, very awful to break through, especially if you're able to keep those screens up. Yeah, good team. I look forward to seeing it. Up next, we got the Palm Coast Porygons, coached by Drunyan. So, I just like this team because I like Florges, I like Delphox, and I wish Mega Steelix are better, but it's not. But it's still pretty good for what it is. Honestly, I feel like this is probably my favorite defensive core that we've seen so far. Been with the Amoonguss, Vaporeon, Florges, Mega Steelix and Druddigan, all just being ridiculously resilient. Got 2 Wish Passers, and almost the whole team is going to be a decent recipient. The only thing that I really am not too much of a fan of, I would probably either switch out Vaporeon or Florges to get something that's a little bit more bulky, but offensive. So I feel like they just both do the same job, but you probably either have to pick one depending on whether or not you want defog or more pivoting, because this team could sorely use both. Because I believe Florges is the only removal on this team, which is a bit scary. It could definitely cut into the longevity of Druddigan, Steelix, and less, I would say the more frail Pokemon, but they're not going to be sticking around too long, like Delphox, Zoroark, Frostlass, and Boltund. They're not going to be sticking around too long, so I don't think it matters too much, except for priority range. But I would switch one of them out for either something more defog focused, well, something with defog or pivot, rather than having to choose between the two. Amoonguss paired with this team could be very disgusting because it just clicks Spore, and then your offensive Pokemon go to town. They just switch in for free and click a button. Specifically Boltund, Delphox, and Zoroark, they just spam specs or banded moves, and the other team's just going to have to deal with it because they're asleep. Steelix is probably just the most reliable rocker in the game. Hazard game is pretty damn good, because you do have the Steelix, you have the Druddigan, and you have Frostlass. All fantastic leads that can set off either hazard, rocks or spikes very reliably. And you got quite a few things on this team that can abuse that. You got the 2 Wish Passers and the Regen Mon that all just want to switch around and force your opponent to deal with whichever one's in. And you also have the offensive Mons that just force in something to defensively check it. Sinking the hazards in. On paper, the team is pretty good. Speed is a bit weird, because it goes from, I believe, Delphox to, I want to say, Vaporeon, and that is a massive, massive gap. I feel like your defensive pieces are a little bit too exploitable for that to be a great thing. So maybe look at trying to patch that up. But outside of that, I think this team's pretty good. I keep saying that, but I like a lot of these teams. Like, there's no team, except for Rhyme Time, I'm so sorry, that's like a complete slouch. They're all pretty good and have something good going on in their own merits. Up next, we got Chocolate Lab of the Gaylord Gastrons. So I saw this game yesterday. Sigilyph is really fucking nasty. It could run so many different sets, and it's kind of hard to prep for. So, you know what, I'll give you props for that round 1 pick, though I think it would last a little bit longer. Outside of that, though, the team is very, very, very unga bunga hit hard, run away. I really like the offensive pressure that this team exudes with Inteleon, Ampharos, and Serena all hitting ridiculously hard, specifically them. Just baseline, and all of them having the ability to pivot out into something else like Lucario and Crocodile and Sigilyph, and Kabuskin, I guess. And Sleeper Komala. I know if I don't mention Komala, everyone's gonna get upset and angry. The only thing I'm not too big a fan on is it doesn't have a spectacular way to deal with ground types. Like, it doesn't like taking ground hits. You're gonna have to rely on Rune, who doesn't resist it, and Serena, which does resist it, but doesn't really like taking strong earthquakes, because I feel like it's better on the special side, just because I almost always slap Assault Vest on it. It could work, but it's just something to look out for. Strong Scarfer Earthquakes could be kind of annoying, even though you did take the best Scarfer in low tier with Crook. Just disgusting. Hazards are pretty good for what they need to do, with Pharisee, Rune, and Crook all setting rocks, and Pharisee setting spikes. Defog and removal, I believe, is Kamala, Serena, and Sigalith. Pretty good, all in all. 2 spinners and a defogger. This team doesn't want to let their opponent... They don't want to get rid of their own hazards, because it just wants to keep going and going and going. And Rapid Spin could also just be a good offensive tool for things like Serena and Kamala to further abuse those hazards that, you know, Rune set up in the early game or whatever. It's got a few double typings, but I don't think it's too big a deal. They do different enough jobs with, you know, Rune and Crook and Lucario and Pharisee. The only thing that it really messes with is giving you more weaknesses. At the same time, the team's just so damn strong, and I don't think it minds too much. You will always try, just try to keep yourself on the, you know, don't get on the back foot, because you will get punished. And be a little bit difficult to come back from. Unless you got Sigalith that just has coverage for fucking everything, like we saw in that game yesterday. Anyway, moving on. We got my team, Haunch, the Fort Lauderdale Feather Dancers. I love my team, man. I love my team, except for the goddamn Comfey that I hate David for making me draft. But you know what? I'm a man of my word. So I drafted it, and I'm gonna make everyone else hate it, so there. And it can't be used against me, so that's another plus. My Gastrodon Shaman Core is just filthy as hell and very difficult to break through, honestly, at least from what I've seen. Especially paired with Fortress to eat up freeze dries could be very useful. Otherwise, those two would be pretty susceptible to it. Speed is, in my eyes, pretty immaculate, with Talonflame to Lycanroc to Shaman to Morpeko to Sock. I'm not really counting Comfey because it's almost never going to run speed anyway because of Draining Kiss, because it's stupid bullshit. Anyway. Pivoting game, I wish it were better, but it's pretty good, but it's not great. I got Talonflame, Fortress, and Morpeko. They're all pretty good pivoting in their own right. I do have pretty good defensive Pokemon to fall back on with Shaman and Gastrodon, and Kangaskhan to a lesser extent, but still pretty good. I'm firm in saying that I have the 2 best priority users in low tier, aside from Lucario, with Lycanroc and Comfey, just to offset my little bit of not really a speed issue, but just for Scarfers and easier revenge killing. Random Muck is kind of just there because I needed a poison, and Duskull is actually surprisingly bulky. I didn't expect it to have about 90 both defenses, but only 20 HP, so I'm probably not going to bring it very often. Jeez, I'm not sure what else I could say about this team. I just really like it. I'm excited to use it, but you know, I don't want that to be a bias. You know, on paper, the team I think is pretty good. I don't know. I'm excited to see what it can do. I'm looking forward to using this team, except for Comfey, because I fucking hate Comfey. So hashtag hate Comfey in the comments. So yeah. Yeah. Hashtag screw comfy. There we go. Alright, moving on. We got Shadow Glade, the Carolina Tauros heals. I thought this team was a little bit better just because... Oh my. There are some things on here that are going to be very difficult to switch into and subsequently deal with. It's not hard to revenge kill this team, but it's hard not to get killed by this team. You got Crawdon with adaptability, just no boosting moves. Just chilling there. It's able to click knock off and just slaughter everything. You have Escavalier, which is bulky enough to take a hit and just kill something. Then you have Noivern, which is a very good fast cleaner, which comes and kills everything. Lycanroc to pick off the weakened stuff. Or to just be a faster mon and just kill something. The speed on this team is pretty good as well, because you go Noivern to Lycanroc to Celebi to, I believe, Magmortar at 80. Just a little bit sketch with that 90 speed gap. It could be wrong. No, it goes down to Quillfish, which is at 85, but I don't think that you're going to be running much speed on the Quillfish. On paper, the team is amazing. I really like it. Go to chat on, honestly. Removal game. You have two pretty good, reliable removers in Hitmonchan and Noivern, which is fairly good because your team doesn't really like Stealth Rock all that much. Doesn't really have a rock switch in, which is a little bit yuck, aside from Hitmonchan. But overall, the team is very, very scary and difficult to deal with and prep for, because you got two giant meaty claws just sitting there. And then you got the two fast cleaners and Lycanroc and Noivern to pick up the scraps from those two. It's just gonna be a fucking nightmare to deal with. Good team. Alright. Next up, we got Scorpion of the Las Vegas Raticates. I don't feel like this team really needs an introduction just because, dear lord. Mega Absol was a fucking menace last season, so I'm kind of terrified to see how well it'll do this season. It's also got the toxicity that you also just chilling there. It can just win games on its own. And the Mana Feed just chilling there. With pretty good bulk that's just able to set up for free. Doesn't have Tail Glow, but still a menace regardless. With excellent coverage. As well as just the Glade sitting there as well to scarf, clean up the pieces. Defensively, the team is it's pretty good, but it's a little whack because you got two mons that three of your mons rely on Eviolite, and Golbat and Gligar I feel like just do the same thing. So maybe replace one of those two. But either one of them is really good on their own. Copper Rush, I've been guilty of kind of underselling in a lot of my, throughout my career as a draft player. It's got some pretty damn good merits, and is a decently good offensive defensive steel type. Oh, defensive offensive steel type. There we go. It's got pretty good bulk, pure steel typing, not too bad. Incredible attack with access to heavy metal, heavy slam, just slaughtering everything in fucking sight. One thing I think this team could have benefited from a lot would have been a Trick Room setter. Well, a decent, reliable Trick Room setter, other than maybe a Glade. But, just for cop and maybe a slow toxicity to just slaughter everything. The reason I put it above the last spot is just the offensive threats are just crazy good, and they synergize really well together. Because you have Toxtricity, which kind of gets beaten by most rock types and ground types. And then you have Mana Feed that just eats them alive. And then you have Mega Absol to just either outspeed them or sucker punch them into oblivion. And you just have a random Glade sitting there. And you got a Kaparaja that you're not usually going to take down in one hit, so it's just going to heavy slam your ass. The only real critique with this team, maybe just switch out Gligar or Golbat. Also, Godino. Yeah. Good man. I'm not sure what the Illumise is for. I'm really curious. I hope to see... I'm really excited to see what the thing can do. And moving on to our number 1 spot. The Drew 07 of the Long Island Lucarios. Whoo mama. This has definitely earned number 1 in my eyes. Just because the offensive capabilities of this team. Oh my god. Either Specs or Guts Swallow. Yuck. In conjunction with Mian Chao. Ew. Because I feel like they benefit from each other quite a bit. Because Swallow brings in all the rocks to the yard, you know the song, whatever. Brings them in for either for Alligator or Mian Chao to just yum yum yum. Eat 'em up, eat 'em up, eat 'em up. Pivot's pretty good with Swallow, Mian Chao, and Rotom Heat all bobbing and weaving throughout. You can also use Umbreon as a slow pivot with slow baton pass. Defensively, the team is insane. 3 Wish Passers that all kind of do different things. And all heal up the fairly bulky for Alligator or non-nasty plot Rotom Heat, which can be very, very difficult to deal with and tough. And just the Steelix sitting there. And on top of, the Swallow, Mian Chao, and for Alligator, you also just have to worry about a random Shell Smash Minior coming in and just cleaning up late game. It's very, very gross. Very difficult to deal with. The only real flaws to this team I see are probably you just need something to remove hazards other than Rotom Heat, and I doubt you're running Defog on Swallow. Maybe just grab one other Defogger. Or a Rapid Spinner, whatever. Either way, it'd be good. Because, you already have Steelix and Clefairy to set rocks fairly reliably, and you have Minior to a lesser extent, but all 3 of them can reliably get up rocks either turn 1, turn 2. It's not hard for them to just come in and click rocks, because they're both reasonably sturdy. Yeah. This team is very nuts, and good luck dealing with it. Jesus. Alright, well, I guess that'll wrap up Power Rankings. Thank you all for watching. Remember, this is just my opinion. Feel free to, rah, but regardless, it's just for fun. Because I wanted to do something for you guys, because y'all are wonderful people. I look forward to seeing how the season will shake out. Lots of really good teams, lots of really cool strategies. I'm really excited for it. Hashtag Moonlight Best Div. Ain't never heard of a Moongeist. Yeah. Alright. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.